Hey guys, Sarah Longwell here, publisher of the Bulwark, and I want to talk to you about something that has been super bugging me lately, which is that I'm watching all these people on Twitter, actually a lot of like anti types, talking about how Trump is so good for free speech. It's just the modern free speech president, and how much better, everything's going to be on the free speech front, no more cancel culture. And I have got a question for these people. What are you talking about? Are we not living in the same reality? Are you not watching the same things I am? Because Donald Trump, I'm not sure I've ever seen anybody threaten speech more directly and more often than Donald Trump has. And so, look, let's just start with this. I want to start by showing you how Donald Trump talks about himself and free speech.
I will bring back free speech in America because it's been taken away. They've taken away your free speech, and the fake news is a threat to this country. They are just horrible. These are horrible people.
So what does he do to the media? So this is part of why this is coming up. I'd wanted to talk about this for a while because he does this over and over again. He threatened a media outlet because they were critical of him, which is one of his go-to moves. I don't know, somehow he managed to catch Seth Meyers, but I'm not going to go through, all of his sort of truth in here, but when he says these are not shows or entertainment, they are shows and entertainment. They are simply political hits. They may contain some political hits 100% of the time. To me and the Republican Party, Comcast should pay a big price for this. Now, Comcast is a publicly traded company, and Donald Trump is threatening it, as he has threatened to sic the FCC or other governing agencies on like parent companies of news channels who say things about him that he doesn't like. What are we talking about here? Is that not chilling to free speech? Is that not like a clear anti-free speech posture? For those of you who've been spending a lot of time worried about the way that speech is being chilled in this country, does Donald Trump singularly get a pass? Does Elon singularly get a pass? I was watching Mark Zuckerberg do this. It's like people have this thing where they say free speech over and over again, and people are like, yeah, free speech. And then in the same breath, almost, they will explain the ways in which they are going to attack free speech, limit free speech, and everybody's like, yeah, sounds good. So I want to give you some examples of these like very obvious things. And actually, before I do, I'm just going to do a shout out to one of the best, most consistent free speech organizations in the country, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, because they are defending Ann Selzer, who is actively being sued right now by Donald Trump for putting out a poll that he didn't like. It had Donald Trump not doing well in Iowa. It turned out to be an outlier poll that did not come to fruition. Ann Selzer, though, had been right far more often than she'd been wrong. She's a highly respected pollster. She published the results of this poll, and now Donald Trump is suing her.
I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points, and it became the biggest story all over the world. And that was the Des Moines Register, and it was their parent. And in my opinion, it was fraud, and it was election interference. She's gotten me right always. She's a very good pollster. She knows what she was doing. And she then quit before. And we'll probably be filing a major lawsuit against them today or tomorrow.
So he's suing her for election interference, for publishing a poll that he doesn't like. That doesn't sound very free speech forward to me. And then there's also the folks on the January 6th committee. I'm not sure he threatens people more often than he does Liz Cheney. And in fact, he's had some threats against her that have included very graphic, violent imagery, talking about, firing squads. But because of their work on the January 6th committee, he's talking about prosecuting them, that they're traitors. And prosecuting is sort of the key here, right? The thing about free speech is that you can disagree with Ann Selzer's poll. He can say that he can dispute it. He can say that it was wrong. They both have free speech. But when you start suing people and or threatening to use the power of the government, which is really the big one, using the power of the government because people are saying things you don't like that's the real rub. Whenever people say, look, you're entitled to free speech, but you are not free from feeling the consequences of that speech. That's true in terms of somebody like yelling at you or people being mad at you online. That the line is when the government prosecutes you for that speech. Okay, that's the thing you can't do, and that's one of the things Donald Trump keeps saying he's going to do. Something that he loves to say, because he's like such a great patriot, is that if you burn the American flag, you go to jail for 1 year.
Put a 1 year penalty, you burn the flag. You burn the American flag, that you go to jail for 1 year. And they say it's unconstitutional, but they have to change it. You shouldn't be allowed to burn the American flag.
I do not care for people who burn the American flag. I think the American flag should be treated with respect. I think it's a symbolic representation of our country. But interestingly, because our country values free speech so deeply, that burning the American flag is actually, and the fact that we even protect that is one of the ways in which we demonstrate our commitment to free speech. And so him threatening to jail people just shows you that for him, free speech is a political posture, not an actual value. And this extends to a lot of other places. Obviously, when it comes to political protests, another very protected form of speech, something that runs deep in the blood of Americans, being able to protest. Again, I'm not a big protester. So as a Republican, we didn't love to protest. That was something our friends on the Democratic side did more often. But respecting the civil liberties of people who protest was always a conservative value. And instead, now Trump, in his first term, remember he wanted to shoot the Black Lives Matter protesters. That doesn't sound very protective of free speech. We're just going to shoot at protesters. And Esper, who was his Secretary of Defense, that was one of the key things that he felt that he really apologized for as Secretary of Defense, was that he didn't do enough to stop Trump as he was trying to go after, especially the peaceful protesters during the Black Lives Matter protests.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
The commander-in-chief was suggesting that the U.S. military shoot protesters.
Yes, in the streets of our nation's capital. That's right.
Doesn't sound like the free speech champion you'd want in your corner. And look, here's the thing about speech, free speech, right? It's not just about defending speech you like. And this seems to be Trump and Elon, frankly, their sort of MO around free speech. It's the free speech for me, not for the posture, which is you say stuff that I don't like, you should be censored. I'm going to hide behind free speech to say all the things that I don't like, and that when you yell at me, I'm going to say free speech, free speech, free speech. That's just like not how this works. That is not what it means to be a champion of free speech. And what I'm finding frustrating, look, Donald Trump's game is very obvious. This is not a person he doesn't have any like fixed principles, really. But there are many people for whom free speech is a deeply held value and something that they advocate for professionally. That is one of the reasons that, they find frustration with any moves to sort of censor things online. Okay, if you are a true blue free speech person, then there is no way you can look at Donald Trump and say, boy, this guy's really going to bat for my values. He is the exact opposite. And so it's just been very frustrating to watch people who think that they understand free speech clearly not understanding it at all. Because, like, I don't know, I got like a million examples of this stuff. Trump has promised to violently crack down and deport the pro-Palestinian protesters. Me? I'm not on the side of the pro-Palestinian protesters. I'm not, personally. They have a right to protest. Now, look, and just to be clear, you have a right to peacefully protest. You don't have a right to set things on fire. You don't have a right to hurt anybody. You don't have the right to loot. And if the police have to be deployed and it gets really big, That's fine. That's different from instructing people to shoot the protesters. I'm begging you guys who say that you're a free speech champion to stop falling for this false notion that Donald Trump is also a free speech champion just because he says he's going to protect free speech. What he says versus what he does on this issue are two completely different things, and I would very much like it if you guys would stop lionizing him on this issue when he absolutely doesn't deserve it. Okay, thanks. I got that off my chest. Go become a Bulwark Plus subscriber, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be doing more stuff like this all the time. See ya.